Hey, this is Simon. Welcome back to my lesson on classification of timbers. We've had a look at hardwood and softwoods, and today we're going to look at manufactured boards. So how do we define a manufactured board? Well, first of all, we need wood in different formats, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. They need to be glued together to create these boards, and to make that glue go off and set, we need heat, because the glue we're using is a thermosetting, let's have a look at that, thermosetting resin, and that will bind all the wood pieces together. And then we also need pressure, which will create the density of the board that we are using. Let's have a look at the different formats of wood that we can make manufactured boards from. So we've got fibers, small bits and pieces of wood. Slightly bigger than that, we have chips, and slightly bigger than that, we can have flakes of wood. And then in a much bigger format, we can have a layer of wood, something which we call a ply. And then also we can have strips of wood, which are not useful for many other things. And then we can have a combination of both strips and ply. There we go, strips and ply. So let's take a look at fibers first of all. And the example I've got here is one which we call hardboard. And this is a relatively thin material, as you can see. I can recognize it because of the little sort of biscuit formation at the back on one side of the material, and you'll find that the other side is smooth, and this will allow it to take paint quite easily. So another use of fibers is with the medium density fiber board. Now you may well know this as MDF, because that's the initials MDF, and that's a common abbreviation that we use for this material. Now MDF is smooth on both sides, and it comes in a range of thicknesses. Now by thickness I mean this distance here, this distance of the sheet here. And the thicknesses range from, well, a common set is 3 to 18 millimeters in school. We tend to use that. The surface, as you can see, is quite bland. So we can do a lot of things to this to finish off this in colour. So we need some finishes in colour to be able to improve the look of this board. So moving on to chips. Then we get the very famous chipboard, and as you can see that this has a smooth surface on top and bottom, but the edges here, well, they have cavities within it, and this can be susceptible to water. So if it gets wet, it can swell. Now a number of these boards will suffer under wet conditions, but particularly chipboard does. So we need to finish this off with like a plastic laminate, and by that I mean a thin sheet of plastic, which may be white, very common, grey, or sometimes they're placed with wood grain on the surface to make it look like a real piece of wood. So if we're using flakes, then we can make this oriented strand board, and again this can be abbreviated to OSB, or sometimes I've heard it being called Sterling board. Now this is easy to spot because it's got these flakes on its surface, which gives it a sort of a roughish finish. And the flakes are oriented in different directions, and that gives it its strength, particularly as, you know, below this, if we go to the other layers below, all of these flakes have been put in different directions. So it gives it some strength by doing that. It's not a fantastic finish, and we're not really using it for its finishing purposes. So, we'd use it on a building site really to cordon off areas and keep people out. Moving across here to the layered manufactured board, we have plywood. Now, plywood is my favorite manufactured board because of its high quality and strength. Now, you can easily identify plywood because of the layers. And I'd just like to describe why you're seeing those layers, because here we get a sheet of material, a sheet of the wood cut in a thin ply. And the grain is running in one direction. So in this case, it's going across like this. Then what they do is they rotate the wood around on the next sheet so that the grain is running in at 90 degrees to the last one. And then again, the next sheet down, they rotate the wood grain so that it goes along that way in another 90-degree angle. So you can see that you're always going to end up with a odd number of layers. And if you count them, they can start off with like 3 layers. And you can really easily go up to something like 35 layers. So the manufacturers are quite clever in this because they will give you a high quality surface on both the top here and the underneath piece as well. And it's got this intrinsic value because you can see the wood grain on the manufactured board, and that gives it a nice quality. And really it's a shame to paint over that wood grain. And also the layers that we see create a nice feature, and when they're cleaned up and varnished, these can look really good. Plywood will also come in a whole range of thicknesses, and again, common ones in school are 3 to 18 millimeters. Moving on here to the strips and ply, we've got a material here which is called blockboard. Now, what they do to make blockboard is they take a strip of wood or a block of wood and they lay them out like this. Here I'm just showing you one. Imagine this plywood has been taken off and this is the strip underneath. Now there'll be another strip carrying on as well because they use all offcuts of wood which are of different lengths, and then they'll glue them together to make them longer. And they will also use wider pieces of wood, so it's any sort of offcuts that they've got which are suitable. Then they do a very clever thing in that they start to rotate the angle of the end grain. Here you can see I'm just marking in the end grain curvature here, and they rotate those so that they oppose each other, and that will give it extra strength. Okay, so the strength is one of the reasons is because of the rotation of the end grain. And then to finish this off, they then take a ply which they place and glue on top, and also of course right over there on the other side to make up this sandwich, which makes it a very strong material. And then moving on to the final manufactured board I want to show you today is the laminated board, and this is using strips of wood. Now the laminated board is like the block board where they take the strips of wood. I'll just identify one down there for you, and again using that technique of rotating the end grain, we can get then a very different and strong piece of material out of all these little pieces of wood which have been left over. Now the advantage of this board is that it generally is a quality piece of wood that they're using. In this picture, I've got pine, but very common ones are offcuts of oak and beech. So you get a nice quality piece of wood. And again, it would be a shame to paint this and hide all that natural wood grain. So varnishing is a nice finish for this one. So why do we go to all this trouble of making these large manufactured boards? Well, there's the first clue, is that they are large. So the length of a board is normally 240 centimeters long and the width 122 centimeters. Now, think about a couple of doors at home put together, it's round about that size. So with these large boards, it means that we can produce large surfaces. So where we need something like a tabletop or a door or even a kitchen counter, then we can, we're already starting off with a large piece of wood. It's also a good use of wood because we are really taking sort of waste wood or small trees which can't really make big planks or even offcuts of wood, and we're gluing them together to make a nice board, and that's fairly environmentally friendly. And the other good thing is that it's stable in its dimensions. Now, if you have a natural piece of wood like the hardwoods and softwoods I showed you before in this sort of size, I mean, if you could even get it in that sort of size, then you would find that it would twist and warp because it loses its moisture, a lot of the cases through the end grain. But by the methods that I've explained here and the strength of the glue, then we get a nice stable dimension on our manufactured boards. And that concludes my lesson today. Thanks for listening.